Welcome to Reality NSFW's coverage of Survivor 41. This is the episode 12 deep dive podcast. I am Alex Rubino, sadly without Lauren Pratt, but I am joined by two wonderful guests, two friends of mine, Kevin McLain and Nigel Bocanegra. How are the two of you doing?
Doing great, wonderful, amazing, awesome.
Excited to talk about Survivor.
Yes, well, that's the reason I'm friends with the both of you. All right. So we're one away from the finale, and I don't know about you guys. I thought we got kind of a dud here, to be honest with you. But what do you, Kevin? Let me start with you. What do you think about the season as a whole?
You know, I think it took me a second to get used to this season. I'm an old school purist. At the end of the day, I probably sound like a cranky person talking about how great Survivor Sucks was from years and years ago. I'm still mad that the idol exists, and we've way past that as a twist. So, you know, for me, I think it actually is a pretty good modern season, I would say, at least since maybe the jury format had changed. It's probably up there, even though we don't know the full ending. But, you know, in my overall Survivor rankings, maybe closer to middle, maybe bottom half, but I've been pleasantly surprised as we got to get to know our contestants. What about you, Nige?
I think I started the season pretty low. I had a negative reaction to a lot of the changes that we got right off of the bat. I think that if we had seen a lot of these changes, like the solo flashbacks or flashing to photos from their personal lives, if little choices like that had happened over a longer period of time, I don't think I would have had as strong of a reaction. But I think that this season actually has the bones of a good season. I think that there's structure there of a good season, but I don't think that production properly executed on it. I think that with the introduction of so many twists that took up time in the episodes, it really took from some character building and some of, especially our late game players, that would have been, I think, really critical to making everything a little bit more enjoyable and making a little more sense. Would have been nice to see any content from Heather and Erika prior to the merge. But, you know, overall, I'm certainly happier with where the season is ending than where it began.
Yeah, fair enough. I like things that the both of you said. Kevin, I like your line of "it's good for a modern season," and Nigel, that line of "it has the bones of a good season." I think that's a perfect way to describe it. It's like, I think I heard Brian Corridan say a couple weeks ago, he's like, it's like Jeff went to producing school for kindergartners. And it feels like that. It's just like we keep like dressing it with stuff. And it's like, no. If we tear this down, we have something good. We don't need all the crap on top. But I mean, this episode really didn't have much of it, and it was still kind of a dud, I would say. Although the part of Danny finding the idol or not, that was interesting. I enjoyed that, like, they didn't just straight up tell us, which is where I maybe give the editing more credit this season. But
you know, I actually didn't find the episode to be that much of a dud. I mean, sure, it was less maybe energy was going on, but I thought the conversations that were being had were interesting. I thought the gameplay was interesting. You know, there's no massive blindside, nothing like that's happening, but I thought it was a good, you know, replacement level episode no matter what. And I kind of like the fact that there just wasn't so much convoluted strategy around it. You know, it's kind of just like putting it in the hands of those players. And, you know, I thought the reactions from the previous tribal council were important to share. And, you know, it was kind of nice to get to know our contestants a bit, even if the reward was kind of stupid or the challenge wasn't the most exciting.
And I think that that's a really good way of putting it. You know, it certainly wasn't the flashiest episode this season, but I don't think that the flashiness has always been a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that we are spending a little bit more time with our characters and their relationships with each other. That I think really does help build up who they are. And honestly, I was pretty shocked to see Danny go, because I just thought that we were marching to a Danny win at the end. So for me, it did have, I think, a payoff by the end of it that I really didn't think that he was going to be the one to go at the end. So for me, it was a little bit of an audience blindside.
Yeah, fair enough in that I listen, I'm grateful we didn't have all the stupid twists. I thought, though, I feel like this episode can almost be described in two ways. The first half is everybody being emotional after tribal, which fair, I get it. And then the other half is Danny or Deshawn who's going, and pretty much all centered around Deshawn. And then like looking back on it from a rewatch, I was like, yeah, maybe they're kind of just telling us, all right, Danny's going, and like they're setting up Danny's fall. And also, we're down to 6, and we still got like nothing of Heather.
Well, this is Heather's maybe one of her bigger episodes, I'd say, though,
And
right?
she's still got nothing.
Yeah, not a whole lot, but I found myself really finding the Heather content this episode pretty compelling. Her kind of reflecting upon this experience. She had like 4 whole confessionals. That's a lot, and I'm just saying that Heather's era is just beginning, and we just need to strap in and enjoy the ride.
There was a moment at the beginning of the episode where she is talking about the tribal council that happened the night before. And at that point, it's like, wow, 20% of Heather's confessionals are about race relations in America. And that's pretty incredible. By the end of it, it's a smaller percentage, but it is nice to see the attention spread a little bit more evenly across all of our contestants. But, I think you're right, Alex. The episode very much centered on, is it going to be Danny or is it going to be Deshawn? And I think that the edit we were given very much matches what their stories had been through this point. Danny just is a little more low key, does a decent job and is there. Deshawn just commands a lot of attention. And that's how the edit was allocated this episode as well.
For sure. And I really, honestly, looking back at it, I do appreciate the beginning of the episode. I just think it was a little tracked out because they had nothing else. But I do like the whole, I love Deshawn talking about how emotional he got, and that whole last episode still gives me chills even thinking about it. But I love just the Danny and Deshawn kind of being almost sore losers in the whole thing of just every minute, we should have gotten that record. I told you we should have gotten that record. See, I told you so. And we got that the whole episode. At the beginning, I understand it. I love Danny's analogy as a football fan. If we could have taken out Tom Brady, but no, we wanted to go play kickball.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's a full agreement as the fan community would say that they made the wrong decision.
I agree.
So of course, it's them being frustrated and angry. People are not playing along with the way they want it to. But what I found really interesting, knowing how this episode goes out and when we rewatched it, is that Deshawn has always been a bit of a messy player from the beginning. And I thought maybe it was just are they trying to make us believe that he's not nearly as messy? And I think the tribal council moment with Erika really kind of solidified, oh, this person just really believes their shit doesn't stink. They think they're playing the best game ever. He's so confident so much. And I think that makes him a really compelling character, but it was kind of nice to see all of his flaws be a bit more exposed. What I just want to say quickly about the season is that I think a lot of people liked Liana and Deshawn in so many ways. I think they spoke so eloquently about race in a way that was really accessible to so many people, and it was so important. But I'd say as contestants, I think both of them tend to have very overinflated senses of their gameplay, and it's because I think they're young and they're strategic and, they kind of understand the game in those ways, but a lot of their decisions didn't always seem to maximize their best gameplay. They seem to turn against people that seem to want to work with them. And it kind of reminds me of other overconfident game bots like Alex Angarita or John Fincher, people who I tended to dislike a lot in the past because they think they're just so smart, even though their gameplay does not actually show a reason to be. But I found that because they were so layered as people, that they were certainly interesting to watch. And I'm very happy that we both had them on our screens.
I think this is maybe the farthest that one of these game bots that you described has gone. And I at this point, I feel like so much of the talk beforehand has been, all right, Ricard's likely winning, but if not, it's probably Deshawn, except from people who are not me, of course, because I've still been on the Erika train the whole time. But now, can Deshawn win after that outburst of kind of, I'm just going to blow everything up?
I certainly think he can still win. And because I too am on the Erika train. I think if it's not Ricard, Erika is our next most likely winner.
And she better win.
and I'm rooting for her. And I think that I have also discredited Deshawn's game quite often along the way, because I think that he plays a game that I don't particularly like and would not like as one of his opponents out there if I were on the island with him. But I just think that he has a hard time not losing track of his ultimate goals. I think he tends to get distracted pretty easily and is bouncing around. And I think he just kind of wants to do everything. He has a lot of different ideas and tries to go for a lot of them. And what I like about Erika's game is that I think that she's a bit more reserved in what she actually wants to execute on. I think that quite often players seem to have either underestimated her or picked out that she can be a little bit dangerous, but she's much more selective in what she's doing. So she at one point in the episode points out that, you know, Deshawn is really likable. And I think that, you know, how much of that is what it takes to win Survivor. That's a huge chunk of it. So even through all of this messy gameplay, I do think that Deshawn has a chance here. And for all we know, he even has a better chance than Erika. I think it's a little hard to tell right now.
Yeah, because the jury is always hard to guess. If I was a juror and I saw that, I'd be like, oh, there's no way, because this person is an idiot. This person thinks there's like, he's like reaching for his bag and he's not the one going home. I mean, he's wrong about multiple predictions in the episode. I mean, that I could not as a juror vote for them, but I'm sure we've also seen other people say ridiculous things before. I mean, if you think of a millennials versus Gen X, Adam Klein was wrong a lot, actually, you know, the whole time he's like, no, play it on Ken. They're gonna vote for Ken is the one who needs the idol. And, you know, like Sunday Burquest of all people is able to get one over on him. So we've had winners in the past not always have their fingers on the pulse of the game, but if they're well liked, if they have strong social connections, and clearly Deshawn does, I mean, you know, he has strong emotional bonds with many of the contestants remaining and those who've been eliminated. He can win, but as someone who really prefers some precision in someone's gameplay, I don't think I would vote for him to win.
No, I mean, I don't think I would either. I've been kind of on the Deshawn is playing a flawed game for a while train. But after this episode, half of me is on the, all right, the only person he would beat is Heather, and would need one more person, so he's not winning anyway. The other half of me is like, maybe he's beating everybody but Ricard with this, and using this almost as like a shield for himself of like, look, I can't win, take me to the end, and then he wins.
Yeah, maybe he claws his way in at the end game, and that maybe is his story.
Yeah.
But you know, he's so confident in a way that I would think I'd appreciate a little bit more humility in my finalists, especially for someone whose game has not been spotless by any means.
I mean, after this episode, like, I still really think Ricard's winning that game. I think they're showing us so much of we should have taken Ricardo, we should have taken Ricardo. So at the end, they can be like, look, they all wanted Danny and Deshawn wanted Ricardo, and look what didn't happen. He won the game. And we're literally like, oh my God, Erika, you should have done it. Or we're getting the Erika win because this episode is another one where Erika points out, she's like, everybody wants Deshawn out. And I know he's the bigger threat, but now I have to convince everybody that Danny's the bigger threat. And we see her go to work doing that. And then she gets what she wants again.
Yeah. And I think maybe it was a little dissatisfying to not see her vote for Deshawn at the tribal council, because when he does his little slip up and tries to shake the game up, it should have been poetically for him to leave the game. But clearly the die had been cast, and you don't want to change it and screw over your allies by trying to shuffle it very end. Even though Heather tried to do that several episodes ago. But, you know, my question to you, Alex, is, I mean, do you think Ricard has some weaknesses in his game overall? Because he does seem to be the proverbial front runner, but, you know, is he truly a lock to win? I think is a real question.
Oh, I don't think he's a lock to win, but I definitely think there are weaknesses there. But out of the players left in the game, he's clearly in the power position, and with only one more legit vote to survive, can he win immunity? Yeah, he's done it 3 times. So if he wins one immunity challenge, gets to fire, wins fire, he's pretty much won the game against anybody. So that's where I'm at. They're running out of time to get rid of him. Well,
you're saying he's in the power position. Can you elaborate on what that means to you? Because it feels like he's been on the hot seat.
He's been on the hot seat, but I still think he's in the power position of he would beat everyone at the end of the game. Everybody's focused on him, so much so that if he wins immunity again, he can can have a big say in who goes home. So I think at that point he can say, all right, he can like go along with like Erika and Heather and Xander, or even like try to do something with Deshawn. Say scoop him in, maybe get Xander along, and then shift the game up. But the thing I'm also interested in, what about Xander? Where do you think Xander fits in all this? Because he's at Final 5 with an idol. So he's at 4.
Xander has been a really weird piece on the playing board for the second half of the merge, I think. It feels like he got a lot of attention and was certainly a part of the goings-ons for the first couple of votes. But after that, he's just kind of dropped off. He's present. He's there. He has an idol, but everyone has seemingly completely disregarded him as any sort of force in the game, and not just as someone I think who could potentially win at the end, but they also don't even seem to be worried about how he can disrupt the trajectory of the game with the idol that he has. Xander could win immunity at 5. It's not going to be crazy if he does. And then he still has an idol. And what can he do with that idol? He has a lot more power, and nobody seems to have been worried about this at all. So my interpretation has, I think, certainly been bolstered by the exit interview of Danny this past week. But it seems like everybody early on just kind of decided that he wasn't a threat. And I think that everybody deciding he wasn't a threat kind of cemented that idea in all of their minds. And, to their detriment, I think many of them have just forgotten about him as a force there.
Have they forgotten about him so much that they can't award him the win at the end? Because in this episode, Heather was more of a target than he was, and everybody knows that Heather's done jack shit.
Yeah, I think Xander has a huge uphill battle. I mean, maybe if he dominates the end game, he wins immunity, he plays the idol, he does the fire making challenge, he like in a Chris Underwood type of way.
No, don't bring his name into this, please. No.
But maybe that's the way that he gets to the end. But I think it'd be really difficult to give Xander the win, considering how the jury seems to feel about him. I mean, other than Tiffany, who has never forgotten that they didn't vote him out, most of them was like, yeah, we didn't vote him out because we didn't want to. There was no reason to. And it's not like he is the reason we didn't vote him out. We chose not to do that. I'm sure in Xander's speech to the jury would be that I made myself be more under the radar, but it just doesn't seem like they're threatened by him. And I don't think they see him as a competitor. I think it's just really hard to give this young, white, naive kind of guy the money when he has not really been involved in a lot of the gameplay throughout the season, even though I think if you just look from episode to episode, his strategic choices have actually been pretty good. I think he's optimizes what he's been able to do. But the fact that no one seems to even think of him as a jury threat tells me he's not.
What I find really interesting about Xander is that he doesn't appear to have a great social game, but he also doesn't appear to have made obvious mistakes either. So I think it's a little bit hard to decipher that because, I think if he had a better social game, he would have been able to maneuver more. He seems to have been able to avoid elimination, but not as much direct things. But it's really hard to pinpoint what exactly he's done wrong. But I think that you're hitting it right on the head of the nail there, Kevin. It's that nobody really seems to be worried about him. And I think that that's an indication that his social standing there, it may be enough to survive, but not enough to get a win.
I think what I can pinpoint what he's done wrong. I don't think he's tried to take control of the game really after the Sydney vote. He's kind of just like, all right, I'm here. Maybe all right, I'm wrong. He tried at the 5-person tribal where everyone home and failed. I think other than that, he's just like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to play the game of I don't know what's going on, which he doesn't. So I don't think he's really playing that much. I don't know what's going on. Nobody's telling me the plan. I'm just here and I have an idol, so don't bother voting for me.
But he's been in the majority since, the final from the Shan vote, right? I mean, so he is in a position, making decisions in the game. And I'd argue his game is probably still better than Deshawn's, because he hasn't made these huge flaws. I mean, when he hasn't stepped up, you don't have to step up and be in a leadership position to win the game. I think that's just, icing on top of everything.
But, I think that that's still very much a focus on the strategic part of his game and not on his social game, where I do believe he's lacking. Looking at the word associations of the jurors as they've been voted out, they've not been very positive. I believe Tiffany referred to him as performative. And to me, that's such a critical piece of the way that other people think of you. It's that even if he did maneuver himself well towards the end, if he's lacking in some of those social bonds, if, he's coming across as very cool, calm, and collected, very different than the way that Deshawn does. But, maybe people are viewing that as he's a little bit more reserved and closed off from people in a way that Deshawn isn't. And so, maybe he's a good opponent for Deshawn because Deshawn can say, like, I didn't get everything right, but me in a way that you don't know Xander.
Yeah. Xander is a emotionless, monotone, if you will, which has been my biggest frustration with him, I think, as a character, because there's so much stuff that could be good there. He has all the bones of an interesting Survivor contestant.
Does he
But
though?
I mean, I think in the sense that his positioning in the game certainly has been interesting. I mean, he's able to slip through each of these votes. I mean, if that happened in any other season, that would be interesting. I think he's just not the most entertaining person per se. But like, I don't think he's been a bad contestant. In fact, I think this is a pretty strong cast across the board. I mean, what's your problem with him then?
Oh,
as,
I think
as a character.
as a character, I think, and I still think he's been a good addition to the cast. I think of late, it's kind of the trying to almost act like you don't care enough. And I think the jury is almost seeing through that of like,
What does that
y-
mean?
like I want to see him like really pushing and being like, you know what? I know I'm not winning the game where I'm at right now. I need to make something happen. And even if it's like it fails, I want to see him try to blow. Like he should have been the one, in my opinion, to at least try to blow things up. Maybe in a better
Yeah.
way than Deshawn did, but just try to push the needle, get something done where you're the one controlling the vote and say, I made this move. I think that would have been more entertaining as well. Maybe not good for his game, but entertaining nonetheless.
So, I think, you make a point here, but again, you're talking about his strategy. So I was
No,
curious
I'm
about
talking
it
about
as
it from an entertainment perspective because
well,
I
from-
don't think it would be great strategy, honestly.
Well, I mean, from like, I guess like maybe as a character, as a human being that we're watching our television screens, I'm curious to think what what your thoughts on him then are.
I mean, I think the same thing you said of emotion. If you want to boil it down to that, I need to see a little bit of like that fire, that emotion, like I want to be here. And it's like I think we got that at the beginning of him being like the little kid, like not having his vote, like trying to play dumb. But I think you saw throughout he wanted to be there. And now it almost feels like, wait, where's that Xander? I want that Xander back.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the only person in the final five that hasn't cried yet. Maybe that's like something from the television perspective. We're just not seeing him like tap into a deep emotional well, even though he seems to actually be like a deep thinking person. I think his interviews suggest he's very intelligent,
Oh,
but
100%.
he's just not relating to people very well out there.
He's maybe a little too stable
Yeah.
is his issue. He's very even keeled, and that can really help you. I would argue that Ricard is also very, very even keeled. And we've also seen Ricard have some issues connecting with people and getting along, but Ricard clearly commands a respect amongst some of the other people that I don't think that Xander does. But, he also has a lot more life experience. He's significantly older than Xander. So, I could do with both of them being a little bit more unhinged from time to time.
For sure. And I think Ricard, we saw a little bit of that when him and Shan were interacting and when him and Deshawn were interacting. I think we saw moments where it's like, Ricard, shut your mouth, shut up here. This would help you if you shut up. And he didn't. And I think that's also where I can point to one of the flaws in his game are those like little moments where he can't bite his tongue well enough. But I also think what's interesting is that this jury seems different. This jury seems different than the juries of especially Edge of Extinction and Island of the Idols, where they were just, to me, so much of give me the big flashy moments. I am here for entertainment. I want to be entertained. Oh, Rick Devens is playing Idols. This is entertaining. And like, ooh, Dean is playing a really interesting game. And yes, Dean didn't win, but boy, did they! I felt like a lot of them wanted to reward him. But I think this jury is seeing through it a bit more, and they're like, no, Xander has no agency in the game. Nothing. He's giving me nothing. I think Deshawn, they're seeing through the like, oh, he's like a little bit of a baby. And that's where I think Ricard can really take charge with this jury. And I think Erika would have a shot as well. To a lesser
Do you think
degree.
this jury is more emotional? I mean, this jury doesn't seem to be. I mean, based on the exit interviews and stuff like that, I feel like we've been hearing a lot of character descriptions of some of the people out there, as slimy or as sneaky, or even discrediting their gameplay as lucky. I mean, and Shan, it seems like someone who's a very emotional juror. She's been a very emotional player, which has been, I think, to her, a strength and a weakness of hers.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, do you have thoughts on how this jury is shaping up?
My interpretation has certainly been that this is a very bitter jury. And I know that most people, when they hear bitter jury, they just think that you're voting for someone based on only your emotion and not the gameplay itself. And we haven't seen them vote yet, right? So I would describe this as a bitter jury through this point in that they all seem to have been very personally invested and have a lot of feelings about the ways that they've gone out. If you watch the Ponderosa this week, you can see a very heated discussion between Danny, Liana, and Shan. I don't know that I've ever seen someone yelling at somebody else over their Ponderosa meal. They haven't even had time to get those nutrients into their brain yet. I would not want to be getting into a fight with a well-fed person if I lost 20 pounds in 23 days, right? But I really enjoyed seeing the visceral emotion. So I think that this jury is definitely feeling burned by some of the other people. And I don't think that necessarily means that they're going to ignore the gameplay, right? But I do think that they are at least probably looking for answers. And I think what's really interesting when you consider that is the three front runners, if you will, for a win here in Ricard, Erika, and Deshawn, they all have an obvious flaw with their game. You can point to something for each of them. Yep. And so maybe this is a jury that is feeling really emotional, is feeling really burned, and is really interested in hearing out some of the arguments, understanding why this person should be our winner. It's not as clear as it's been in some of the more recent seasons, I think.
Yeah, I do think this jury has elements of being bitter, but I also think they have elements of setting that aside. So I think we saw in like a lot of the earlier Ponderosa videos, like with like Tiffany, Nasir, Evie, even Shan, they're all like having a good time. They're all like, you know what? You got me, but now, and even Liana to add to that, for the most part, you got me. Now let's have a good time. Like the game is the game. Set that aside. We can get along now. And it's where I'm thinking to an extent that they'll be able to set the game aside in like maybe their final vote. But I do think moments of final tribal, especially if Deshawn is there, could get a bit ugly. I don't know.
I mean, I hope it's a bitter jury. I love a good bitter jury.
I know you do, Kevin.
It is time for people to be more emotional on the jury. I am tired of this sterile panel interview where you're just supposed to kind of set all that aside. I think it's a lot more interesting to see these compelling relationships deliver. But I do wonder if, if this is going to happen. I think some of the most interesting moments of the season are about the relationships between contestants, Ricard and Shan and Liana, Erika and Heather, even holding hands as they, were waiting to see if it was Heather or Nasir to go home in that round, have been some of the most compelling, but we have not got a lot of long-term story arcs from a relationship building perspective. It's been very spotlighted character of the week, of the moment. And I think the old format allowed for those relationships to take more center stage in the overall story, right? So a season like Survivor Vanuatu, where the jury's very much voting on emotion, that's so tied to the way the story is being told to us. So I really wonder how that is, coming out.
And, I also think it's possible that look at the makeup of our jury. The last three people that were voted out were a part of the Black Player Alliance. And there's clearly some strong feelings in the way that group ended up splintering and getting voted out one after the other. Whereas the first couple of people on the jury,
they knew their number was up.
Yeah, they knew that they were going to be going to begin with. So it's possible that we have a first half of the jury, second half of the jury, with just a couple more people to be added to that list. And so how does that balance end up shaking out?
Yeah. One thing you mentioned there that I want to really hone in on is the whole Erika and Heather dynamic. We got a little bit of that in this episode, and I really enjoyed that. And for the love of God, if this jury thinks Erika and Heather played the same game, I'm going to hate all of them. I'm going to be like, no, you guys are the biggest idiots on the planet. And also, if Erika can't convince this jury of that, maybe she isn't the good player that I thought she was. But do you think that could legitimately happen in this case of somebody takes Erika and Heather to the final three, and that whoever that is, whether it be Xander, let's say Xander or Deshawn, or even Ricard, they're just getting all the votes because, Erika and Heather played the same game and neither of them deserve a win?
Well, Survivor has a history of late of not respecting female contestants that get to the end. So
That's not true. Come on, Kevin.
I don't put it past a jury to think that Erika and Heather are the same person and the same gameplay because they're both women, right? And who had a very close bond. I think for us audience who are watching it, we can clearly see some very big differences in how they approach the game and how they've maneuvered this game. But they could easily be final tribal losers. I mean, it's possible that because Erika's strategy is to be under the radar, that she is not perceived as someone who's getting credit. I mean, Ricard's entire story in that pre-merge was about credit, about like, I'm the one thinking of these moves, right? Is Erika getting that same ownership of her strategic decisions is a real question.
And I think that a challenge that they could run into is the length of the season. In the episode, I think at one point, Ricard makes a reference to having known Erika for about 10 days.
Yep.
You know, they didn't have any swaps in the pre-merge. The Luvu didn't go to tribal. So Heather and Erika, were together the entire time, and they were there with the rest of the Luvu tribe. But that means that people like Liana, Evie, Tiffany, they just haven't really spent a lot of time with those two. And so I think that they could run into an issue where a lot of people out there may not have felt like they even spent that much time with them. And, Heather doesn't strike me as someone who's been particularly forward with her strategy. I can't imagine that she had a ton of strategic conversations with Tiffany or Evie before they were booted.
No.
So for all we know from their point of view, their games were very similar because they just never really got much exposure to who they were while they were playing the game together.
Yeah, I feel like Erika's final tribal story, she gets there, needs to be some combination of I was the underdog. Look, Danny and Deshawn especially, you wanted me out for several times. You could never get me. That's because of the social game and strategic allies she's made. The other thing, she was controlling a lot of the votes behind the scenes. She pinpointed at the Shan vote where each vote was going to fall, and it fell the way it was supposed to. She controlled the Liana vote again, said, you're going to vote here, you're going to vote here, you're going to vote here. It happened. Did it, and then did it again with this vote with Danny and Deshawn saying, all right, here's how we're going to split it. Here's who's going home because I want them to go home. That plus her taking out Ricard, and I think she needs to be vocal enough in taking out Ricard that the jury sees it. I think all those things can get Erika the win, no matter really who she's up against at that point. But what do you guys think? What is enough for Erika to win this game?
Go ahead.
So, touching a bit on Erika versus Heather, what I think is really interesting is that during the tribal council last episode, they essentially get the same question from Jeff in asking, like how you were going about this. And Heather essentially says, just because we didn't vote out Ricard does not mean that we weren't doing what was best for us. We each individually have the plan that is best for us. And that's kind of what the entirety of her answer is. But when Erika does that same answer, she contextualizes her answer. Just because getting rid of Ricard isn't necessarily what's best for me. I wanted to get rid of Liana instead. She really contextualizes what she's doing in a way that Heather doesn't. So I don't think that the jury will have a hard time distinguishing between their games because I think Erika does a better job of that. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are buying it and that they're interested, but I don't think that they'll get confused in that way.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Erika is really good at her arc. Her narrative is clear. I am the lamb. I want to be a lion. She understands her branding so much, is maybe why they didn't give her that much airtime, because it's like she's probably just saying the same thing over and over and over again. She's biding her time, and it's probably a good strategy overall, and it's probably why she, in my opinion, is the most important player in the end game as the one who kind of decides how this is going to shake out. I do think maybe a weakness of Erika's is that we didn't, she was going to be the first one booted out of her group. She would have gone if it wasn't for this hourglass twist that came up. She seems to be perceived as very lucky compared to her opponents. And we also don't seem to see her having strong bonds with any members of the jury. We don't get her relationships with them. So maybe she is a little withdrawn compared to them. I think those are real things to consider. If she is such a spectacular game player, and I really like Erika for the record, then why was she so vulnerable in the early game when her whole idea was to be kind of under the radar, but wasn't, because she was clearly had a bullseye on her from her own allies. People chose people over like Sydney over her, right? And maybe that speaks to maybe some of her social game weaknesses.
I also think you can maybe make the argument that Erika was at a bit of a disadvantage with that Lubu tribe, because you look at it's like Danny, Deshawn, Nasir, like they're like the strong guys. They get there, and Sydney's kind of like has that like macho personality that goes along with them well. And then who do you have left? The old lady and the short little girl. That's where I feel like you put Erika at that disadvantage like from the get go. And if she can use that well enough and be like, yeah, you guys wanted me out for a while, and you were right. I was sneaky, and I was gonna get you, and I did. Look at that. You were worried about me. You couldn't get me, and then I got you. that's what I'm hoping Erika goes for, because I don't know what else gets her the win. I think she can differentiate herself from Heather and say, look, I mean, she can leave Heather in the dust. Heather's not winning this game. We all know that. Heather
Don't say that. Don't say not to Mama Heather. Not to Mama Heather.
Kevin, if Heather wins this game, I am paying you $100 and then also taking another $100 and burning it in fire. There's no shot in hell she wins this game.
So,
I wish it was possible, but it's not. And also,
go ahead.
If you want to give the the one-word association game any bit of credit, which we all know exit interviews aren't always canon, and who knows what these players are trying to say or not say to spoil things or not. People have been talking about Heather like that, like she killed someone's dog. Like, Heather is the worst person on the planet. I don't know why. I want to know why.
Her word associations were bad.
No one's gotten them worse ever.
And what's interesting too is that Heather doesn't appear to have, not done much on screen. We haven't seen much of her at all, but she also doesn't seem to have made many big mistakes. I think that the standing up and trying to flip the vote at the very last second was clearly a mistake, but it doesn't even seem like she faced that much backlash from it. But she doesn't seem to have really done too much wrong, but she has some very bad responses.
Her social game, I think, has some clear weaknesses, but I do think it should also be noted that I think Heather, compared to any other white player before her, has come in with the hardest difficulty setting, right? Because, I've always said that one of the challenges of these games is that you're going to walk into an experience, we're going to live with people that don't look like the people of your normal social circle, right? And I want to make sure I get through this thought first before I delve any further. But she is not interacting with this type of diversity in her everyday life, right? And that's no different than Sean Rector. Sean Rector's not used to dealing with these types of people in his daily life, either in Marquesas. But for the average white person that goes on Survivor, they're kind of more used to this. But Heather's a stay-at-home mom. Even diverse workplaces, diverse settings like the workplace are not going to be places where she's interacting with people different than herself. So she's really walking in the most sheltered out of anyone. And that's not to say that means that she should be given, $1 million for learning about racism or something. But I do think that, bare bones about how you played this game, Heather hasn't voted outside the majority. Heather has stayed in the game. And if she's the end with Erika and Deshawn, if I'm Heather's coach and I had to tell her how you're going to sell this to the jury, it's that Deshawn was supposed to go home with the do or die. Erika was supposed to go home before the hourglass happened. I was never going home. I always had a position in this game. Why is my gameplay any less valid than theirs? I was part of those conversations. I voted the right way. My alliances needed my vote. And clearly, it's not a strategic issue for Heather, which I think how most people perceive it. It's a social one, that Heather does not seem to be respected by the people out there. She clearly is a little awkward as a human being. And those are things you cannot really fix that easily. Even if she was to take advantage of the end game and really influence it all, it doesn't change that her social game is very, very poor.
I think Kevin makes the best argument that Heather can make at Final Tribal. I don't think it gets her a win. I don't think it gets her votes, but it is the best argument that she can be making.
It's her best argument, but does she make it? No way in hell. The other thing that I want to pinpoint with Heather really is just I feel like this, every time she says something about how she is almost, anytime she tries to stick up for herself, she either inadvertently or maybe advertently offends people. I still remember that moment where she's like, look, I did better than everybody in the challenges who's gone. And they're like, wait, no, you didn't. And it's like, no, if you look back at the tape, Heather did beat you at that one endurance challenge and she was seconds away from winning it. I think this jury to an extent has that inflated sense of self that you mentioned with Deshawn. I think this jury is like, no, I'm the best. They took me out because I was a threat. And little Heather has done nothing. No, Heather did a little something. Yeah, not much. And it's every time she pinpoints it, they're like, no, sit down. You did not beat us. I'm not losing to you.
Yeah, I'm not ready for Heather to be roasted by the jury. She's just, they're going to be so mean to her. And I do think it's interesting is that we talk every year about how the moms don't get a fair shake, but now we're in this conversation. Heather doesn't seem to, I think, get a really fair analysis by many fans. I think we're just kind of just write her off as someone who is completely useless because she hasn't got much of an edit, but she has never she has not been nearly in the crosshairs in the way that other players have. And I think that is supposed to be a valid way to play the game that I think is our job to at least appreciate for what that is, and not to just say that she's totally dead in the water, even if that may technically be true based on the other clues that we're getting about how the story is shaping out.
Oh yeah, I'm saying it from those perspectives. She's totally dead in the water. But because we've got nothing. There's no. Listen. It's a little hard to even see Erika getting the win based on the fact that she got almost nothing through the pre-merge. It's impossible to see Heather winning this game because she literally got nothing. But I just wish she had more strategy. We saw more strategy from Heather other than the one moment she failed.
It's weird because I think that Heather and Xander have very, very different edits in the way that they've been shown. But I think that the rest of the group has treated them very similarly, where they all just seem to dismiss them and not particularly value them. Very different positions within this game as well. But, I think that Heather absolutely has fallen into the same trope of the mom who nobody really just like buys into. And I think that a lot of the fans, a lot of the commentators have dismissed Heather because it seems like that's what the show has done too. It's not just the people that were out there, but it seems like the editors, they just have never really cared to make us buy into her story. We've bought into her story, Kevin and myself, because it's the purple edit. That person becomes more interesting. What are they hiding from us, right?
I agree with you.
This compelling Laura Bonham character is just something so vulnerable and delicate about her, and I'm very drawn to the screen when Heather talks, even if it is complete nonsense that's probably offending a jury member. I love it.
Oh, I'm with you in terms of loving it, in that, like, oh my god, it's like she's like the extra castaway we forgot about. Oh my god, something new. Look at this. How is Heather going to say something accidental that like upsets people? I love it. I just wish she had like a semblance of a shot and is just not going to get crucified with this jury. It's like, I don't think this jury's giving her a fair shake. Even if she gives the best speech on planet Earth, they're all going to be like, nope, you did nothing. You did nothing. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to vote for The Rock over you.
I think at this point, Heather, her like a best case scenario is coming out like Troyzan in Game Changers, just like a little, oh, so proud of you for making it. Now on to the people we're considering, because then she's not roasted, at least. That does seem like her best case scenario.
And I don't think she's getting it. I think maybe if she was a man in that scenario. I think that's the difference between a man and a woman being in the GOAT spot for the most part. The man basically gets ignored, and they're like, all right, we don't have to worry about it. The woman gets crucified because she's an easy punching bag.
Yeah, I mean, Chandra, I think, referred to her as ignorant.
Yes.
I mean, that is not a good thing to be called.
That is bad.
In a season of people being really aware and more worldly, and a cast that clearly has a lot of world experience. Yeah, I mean, Heather was drawing dead from the beginning, but God love her for it.
I mean, Heather's even saying things like she's learning, and I get that. Like you said, coming from that like somewhat sheltered place, if not completely sheltered place. I don't want to speak to where she's grown up and all that because I don't know it fully, but she's at least like admitting that she's learning. Like, I could almost understand people saying this about Heather if she was kind of more defensive in like the last trial and being like, no, I never did anything wrong. No, I didn't, like, not admitting, okay, I have to grow. Because I think she genuinely, like, deep down seems like she genuinely cares and wants to be better and be more supportive, even if she's like the old awkward lady who like can't say it right, and you're like, no, Heather, don't say that. That's not good. I feel like that's what you're getting with Heather. It's like a lot of the older people, and even in my life that I can think of, that are just like even if they have good intentions, like, no, you can't say that. That makes things worse. No, not that. Say this. Like,
in thinking about it, I think that Heather is a little bit interesting. If you think about the Black players talking about these different references to after the year that we've had.
Yeah.
You look at the cookout on Big Brother, they talk about doing it for the culture. They make a reference to the last year that they've had. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's insignificant that Heather is here talking about learning and wanting to be educated, and that when you have some people of color who are starving, literally starving in the true definition of it, going through one of the most stressful, hard experiences of their life, that they don't want to be educating someone. right? Like after all of that, you don't want to have to also be doing this extra work that you have to often do for people in the outside world. And
Yep.
so, Heather might have all of the right intentions, but unfortunately, for a lot of the other players, maybe this just wasn't the best place for it to happen in their eyes.
That makes complete sense. I'm totally with you there. Shifting gears a little, because I think unless you guys have anything more to add about Heather?
No, go ahead.
I
Okay.
think we've talked as much as her edit has given her so far.
I was about to say that we've talked more about her tonight than she's been on the damn show.
The Heather Deep Dive Recap Podcast is coming to you soon.
Oh my God, Heather, if you're listening to this, I want to talk to you after the season. We can talk for 4 hours if you want to.
She has at least the most to talk about because we saw none of it, right?
You know what, Heather? I'm dead serious. I would love to talk to Heather post-game. I doubt it's happening, but if Heather's out there, I would love to talk to her. Unless something happens Wednesday that makes me not want to. I don't think so. But what I'm curious about, after the immunity challenge, we have like the talk of like, oh, we should have gotten Ricard, but now we can't. So like we're splitting the votes between Danny and Deshawn. Why the hell did Danny and Deshawn not even try to say, you know what, let's vote for like anybody. Pick a person. It doesn't matter who it is. Like, let's just try and then maybe hope that you can convince one of the 4 to vote with you by accident. Like anything? I almost feel like it's just like you're laying down and dying, even though if you know they're splitting the vote, you can make it 2-2-2 and try something. Maybe if you vote Xander and he doesn't play the others are like, you know what, maybe we'll take out Xander. Like, why not something? That's what my question is.
Well, I mean, I think that Prisoner's Dilemma is really hard. I mean, and we saw this in Big Brother as well. And I think actually in a lot of this season is that a lot of people believe they're capable of integrating into the next group if given the opportunity. People seem to be very confident about their social skills. Let me tell you, because, the first few weeks of Big Brother 23, you saw the same exact thing, right? Frankie got rid of Travis, who totally wanted to work with him. And then Brett didn't stick up for Frenchie, and even though Frenchie was totally loyal to him. And then Brett kept trying to work with Whitney, but Whitney was like, who cares about him? And then like so on and so forth. People kept getting rid of people that were loyal to them. And on this season as well, I mean, Erika's coming to Deshawn pre-merge about working with him, and then he wants to get rid of her. The Yasas come together, and then the next vote, they are totally in disarray. It does seem like we're having a lot of issues of people misreading their social standing with others. And they just really believe that if I can just get through this vote, I can weasel my way in. But I think I think they recognize the game is super fluid, and so that's what they're all banking on each round, opposed to trying to like form a better hierarchy.
I think it's also possible that Danny maybe just did too good of a job of making them think he maybe had an idol. Maybe it was a bridge too far for people to have 2 idols at the final 5. And if they thought that there was 0 chance that he had an idol, maybe it would have been easier to pull over one person. But to me, that did seem like the easiest way for them to get out of that target that they had. But maybe pretty quickly they just realized that there was a 0% chance of it, and that going after the other was their best bet.
I guess, but I feel like you go after the other, you're at the bottom regardless. You are the only one in the game. You have a giant bullseye on your back. Everybody wants to get rid of you. You try to split it 2-2. I give Danny the credit on the pretend idol. That honestly was pretty good. But I think it's like you did step 1 of your plan. But now take advantage of the fact that people think you have an idol and do something about it. So you know what? I have an idol. I'm playing it tonight. Who's voting? Like, do the whole like Mike Holloway thing. Danny's voting for or Deshawn's voting for somebody. I'm voting for this person. Join me or you're going home.
But is the Mike Holloway play too overdone now? Was the way that Danny was doing it the best plan of action? Because, we all saw the big show by Mike Holloway, and he doesn't play the idol on Shireen. I think that there's been a lot of big, boisterous, talk at Tribal like that before that hasn't panned out. And so maybe playing it down a little bit does feel like a more authentic way of doing that to people.
If you want to play it down, that's one thing I can understand. And like, listen, I agree with you there. That's probably his better strategy. But you've got to play something. He played nothing. He said, all right, I'm done. Deshawn or I are going home. That's it. We're done. Let's just go talk and reminisce about how I played in the NFL and how Deshaun's a cool guy. That's what it came down to, it seemed like.
Yeah, I mean, I think what would have I think they probably couldn't have flipped anyone because they are clearly a pair. There's been a lot of conversations about how the blackness has shaped this game and culture. And so like I would be very worried about having one of them in the final three with me just for that reason. But like I think the move for either of them is to convince them that we are voting together. So you're the one vote that does send them home in a 3-2-1, right? So like
Exactly.
Danny convincing Deshawn that yeah, we're both actually voting for Erika this round. But I don't know who they're really flipping because it doesn't seem like Xander and Heather are considered real jury threats. So they're going to be locked in. And Erika is a necessary vote in order to churn over Ricard later. So like I mean, what is your scenario that who are they really flipping?
I think you gotta almost maybe try to flip it on Xander. So you know what? We're voting for Xander. He has an idol at the final five. He will have an idol at the final five, and that's one less spot for you.
Yeah, I mean, I
Maybe
think they should have got rid of Xander several rounds ago.
I think maybe you grab a card for that vote then. That's my thinking. You grab a card for that vote. At least try. Maybe they
Yeah.
did, but it's like, all right, hey, Ricard, I know you're the biggest threat in this game right now. If one of us go, we're just there on our own, and you have to win immunity or you're gone. Why don't you do something with that? Get rid of the guy who has an idol, bolster your resume even more, and then the next round you can get rid of one of us, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that probably is the best scenario to move forward because, having that idol floating around is such a huge problem, and I don't understand why this cast of very intelligent people seems not to care about that. But that's a real big, scary thing to be going into the final five vote with.
I almost think they don't care because Xander is such a non-entity that even if he plays the idol, oh well.
These people seem to think that Xander's not capable of playing an idol correctly. That's the only explanation.
Really? I almost feel like they just don't. They think he's capable of playing. Or they just think he's going to play it for himself, and they're not going to bother.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he could just play it on someone else. I mean, that's to me, that's the scariest level that there is.
I
He could
just loved the Natalie Anderson move at Final Five, and why risk giving someone the opportunity to say, "Did you vote for who I told you to vote for?"
Yes, but my thing is, Xander has been the guy who's bluffed several times, saying, "I'm going to play an idol on somebody," and never has. I think at that point, he'd be like, "You know what? This is the boy who cried wolf. You're not going to do it. You don't have the balls to play an idol on somebody else. You're just going to play it at Final Five, and if you don't win immunity, either you'll sit on it, or maybe then you'll give it to Heather, which means nothing." Like, what
listen.
basis do I have to go off thinking, you know what? Oh, Xander is going to play an idol for somebody here. He hasn't shown it.
Well, I mean, I think the fact that he gave the idol to Tiffany at the final 11 shows someone that clearly at least can maneuver strategically, at least for a vote, even if the idea could have been someone else's. So he has been able to hand over an idol, which to me is no different than playing it from a
Mm.
being vulnerable enough strategy.
I completely disagree with you on it being the same equivalency because you're giving it to Tiffany because you know Liana has that power, and if you don't give it to Tiffany, you completely lose it. But then he has complete control of it at that vote still because Tiffany will do whatever he says, and he says don't play it. And then
Yeah,
he's like, I'm gonna save Evie. Nope, I didn't. Oh crap, I didn't save Evie, and Evie's gone. Oops. And it almost seems like he just wants to have his cake and eat it too. But he's at the point of he's not gonna have any cake to eat, and he's just like, well, here's the idol.
yeah, but I mean, if it works at the final five and he gets the final four, I mean, didn't his strategy work still? I mean, I think that's like a real argument from his perspective. Why do you have to play your idol on someone else for you to win? I mean, if pocketing it and then being able to get through a free round like it's a legacy advantage works for you, then what's the problem?
It- to me, it works for you. It can work for you in that way. But if you're going to like say you played a flashy game and you had an idol and all that, but then you weren't enough of a threat for people to even consider getting rid of you, and you just burn the idol. It's like I can give you a little bit of credit for that, but it's almost like okay, you're just almost Heather with an idol at this point.
Oh, what a great season that would be. I mean, if I'm a Xander at the end and that was kind of the message I'm hearing is that like, well, we didn't see you enough as a threat and be like, well, that was my strategy. I mean, it was my strategy to lay under the radar. I'm an athletic, capable, intelligent white guy. You know how dangerous we are. And y'all didn't vote me out. And I was able to get through round after round after round and be primed to get to the end game and shape that end game. I think there's a real case there. I think because his social skills seem to be a little lacking, that's not going to be enough. But If I had to, transport into his body, that would be the pitch I would do.
I do think his issue is that everyone has dismissed him through this point, and so even if he does make moves, it's through the lens of everyone having discredited him. So the move isn't as impactful as it would have otherwise been. So I think for him, it's just a little too late at this point. I think he needed to have changed things up a bit earlier, but I think that it was also probably really hard for him to understand that at the time he needed to make some changes.
I almost think you have everybody knows Xander's been playing the game from behind the whole way through, and he had the good vote. The vote was where Sydney went home, where he did something to wiggle out of that situation. But nobody's ever seen him wiggle out of something and get into any kind of power position. He's either stood where he's at or wiggled a little out of something. He's like the sneaky little rat almost that isn't taking any control. And I think this jury wants to see players who took control of the game. That's why I think they respected Shan so much.
Yeah, but he was in the majority at the Shan vote, right? He was in the majority at the Liana
He was
vote.
in the majority, but did he do anything to control it?
No. Yeah, I think his issue is that the perception of everyone around him is that other people led the Shan vote and he was used as one of the votes, but they're not giving him any of the credit of it. He should get some credit of being brought in, but the problem is that everybody else has decided to get Shan.
I think he's getting as much credit as Heather in that instance.
Well, yeah, which is, again, probably speaks to a deeper issue that we're not seeing. Yeah. But we see a lot of content of him talking to people like Erika to get her to flip against that group, saying that clearly the four of them are all working together. I think there is a story of someone that should be, a stronger winner candidate based on the actual gameplay that we're seeing. But it may be kind of Spencer in Cambodia, where clearly there's some social reasons why you're not succeeding, even if your gameplay actually just did maximize, I think, a valid strategy of getting around each single vote. There's a lot of people who could never do that. So, you would think that he would be doing better. And I really would like to know, once the season's over, what the real disconnect was.
Fair enough. The one other thing I really want to touch on is Deshawn's bomb, if you will, at the end. When Jeff asked, all right, do you and Danny have anything left to say? And Danny's like, I left my soul in Survivor, blah, blah, blah. Playing the game almost if I stay in this round, I can still win the game. Deshawn plays the whole, oh, look, here's my big news. Erika won't take Heather to the end yet, and exaggerated that to a level, which I get, good for him. He has to do that. But then he just kind of gets piled on, and I think maybe it kept him for the vote, honestly. It helped keep him. Although I think Erika basically said, all right, I want Deshawn to stay, and this is now more proof that I want Deshawn to stay because he's the easiest. Him and Ricardo, the easiest two targets ever next round. But what do you think this takes him? Does it benefit him at all?
I don't think it benefits him. I think that Deshawn thought he was going. I think he thought that he was getting voted out and it was his last episode. So I think he probably wanted to make his last final tribal a little more lively and go out with a bang, because I think that, it is a legitimate strategy to divide really close allies, reveal information. One of you is not as nearly loyal to the other as you may think, but that kind of move is more likely to succeed if you have done the groundwork for it to work. But I don't think that he did nearly enough of it. He kind of led Erika into admitting she could consider not moving forward with Heather, but I don't think that he did enough to sow the seeds of doubt so that when that news came up, it was more meaningful to Heather. So to me, it was just kind of he did it to be flashy, but it was not something that was advancing him in any way.
I think he hit the whole dynamic with him and Erika just almost laughing at him, being like, oh, you're welcome, friend, that I kept you. It's oh, aren't I sweet? Kevin, where do you, if the final three is, God forbid, Xander, Deshawn, and Heather, did Deshawn almost kill his chances of winning?
Heather is going to win. No, I think.
Tell me votes she gets. I'd love to hear them.
I think that if that's the final three, and what a wild ride that would get to. Yeah. I think maybe Deshawn could win. I mean, the thing is, Deshawn got a little bit of egg on his face, right?
A
In that
little?
moment.
I think he took an egg and smashed it on his own face and said, "Look, I've got egg on my face."
Yeah, but he is also a pretty resilient person, I would say. I think
For
that's part
sure.
of some of his story is that like, the chips were down and I kept making it work. I mean, Tony played an idol on the wrong person in Kaguya, right? Like, so people have made mistakes before with a lot of confidence about their little bag of tricks or what information they're releasing to the group. That isn't that much of a surprise. I think his real issue, I think he's benefited because he looks like such a fool that maybe he'll be underestimated about his jury appeal, but I don't think he's totally dead in the water by any means because clearly he has been able to connect with enough people and I do think there are end game situations where he could theoretically win. But yeah, I don't think this was a good move or a good look at all.
I think he's done enough to win, but that doesn't mean that he would beat a lot of people. So I think in the right combinations, you could see him win against Heather and Xander. I don't know that he necessarily wins against Heather and Erika, though. So I think it really does depend on what the actual combination is going to be for him.
Yeah, I almost like you're saying that Deshawn has done enough to win. Like enough, he has enough in the plus category, but he also has a good amount of stuff in the minus category that would like throw tank him almost. So it's really just interesting to see if he makes it to the end, who he's making it to the end against, and what that jury is thinking. And I'm particularly curious what Shan thinks of him because I think Shan can sway a lot of people. And if she's really better at him, then I see his chances are almost extinct, for lack of a better word. And then at the end, so we end this whole saga, if you will, and the differences between Dan and Sean, where we get Queen Erika's plan going to perfection. They split the vote 3-3 on the revote. Danny goes home unanimously, and I love Erika's line of telling Deshawn that you're welcome, and then we get Danny saying "Go Cowboys," which made me cringe inside as a New York Giants fan. And then Danny is off into the sunset. But do you guys have Kevin? What's your final impression on Danny?
You know what? Danny was a nice guy. So I was never the highest on Danny. I mean, I think I always kind of liked him. He just seems like a nice, charming person. But I found me really liking him a lot in his Ponderosa. Actually, he's clearly very charismatic. And I think when Nigel and I had watched the footage, it seemed like maybe there was a calorie deficit concern that caused him to be a little bit more reserved out there. But he's funny. I think he's an actual class act. I thought he seems like a good guy. I don't think his gameplay was bad by any means. And maybe it's not the most advanced or complex, but this is a show with winners that haven't always been the most advanced or complex before. So yeah. I do think Danny had all of what it took to win. And I think I like Danny enough, but I think Nige is even bigger on Danny overall.
Yeah. I do think that I think that Erika managed to vote out the person who was on track to win the game after all the pieces fell. I do think that he has everything that you need. He's not exactly flashy, and he isn't the most exciting player out there, but I think he did a lot of work on his social relationships. I don't think he made many mistakes. I think he's a very prototypical winner. In fact, I think that he was starving and was not as lively as you see in his Ponderosa. I do think that that's part of it. But what I really like about Danny is that he's actually kind of like an old school player.
Yes.
He seems interesting. Where he says like, "Oh, did you know that we don't have to vote out the strongest person? Like we can vote people out for other reasons." And it's like, yeah, you do feel like old school because they figured that out then too. We've had some time to catch up on that. But to me, the best part about Danny is how he's fought production and called BS on the hourglass twist. Yes. And I appreciate that Danny pushes back on some of this stuff that I think is bullshit too, and I'm glad that Danny's not afraid to kind of really speak in his mind in a way that players who are really, really interested in coming back are more hesitant to do. But to Danny, he's like, I played in the NFL for 6 years. Survivor's just like this weird vacation I took one time, so he's willing to kind of say some things that a lot of other people aren't.
Danny's a confident guy who I think just leads with that. And I think that's why he just drew so many people. And I mean, he's a real casual fan favorite, I think.
Yeah.
but he just seems like a nice guy. And if Nasir's not going to be there, I'm glad that Danny was a nice man.
I agree with you there. He reminds me of almost D'Angelo Williams when he played The Amazing Race, just at the end, getting frustrated with the rules. Although I think Danny had a lot more of actual gripes than D'Angelo ever did, because The Amazing Race is a little less stupid in that way.
Well, I'm sure Danny was very frustrated because he's used to a game with very clear rules, right?
Yes.
Like you can imagine him like, "Where's the ref?" when all that was happening. That's the uncut footage I need to see.
Oh my god, I would pay. Like I always say, I would pay like a good amount of money for these like full length tribals, even if they're an hour and a half each. I would be the moron using my winter break to binge all of them. I just want him ripping probes and saying, "What the hell was that stupid twist?" I want that. Oh, I would pay a lot of money that I don't have for it. But the last thing, Jeff leaves them with the whole, all right, you have 3 days left in the game, 2 immunity challenges, the vote, the fire. Although I don't know why I called it tiebreaker. I could hope that maybe they're going to get to a vote. They're not, though. But then he's like, you're going to go to a new island for the last 3 days. Like, are they just trying to like say that they used the like exile/edge/island of the idle space enough? Like, all right, if we don't use it for 4 days on production, we've wasted it and we don't get it again. Like, what's the point of this?
Maybe it's like squatter rights. If they don't go home, if they don't keep going back, they
That's
just
what, right? Is it squatter
They lose
rights?
the island. They lose the island for the future. And I'm like, lose the island. It's not that big of a deal, y'all. It's fine. Lose the island.
And it's essentially the same thing that they did in the Island of the Idols, right? To me, we got nothing from it. I think it's probably going to be the same thing of like it's just like a weird thing production did that kind of perked our ears because we didn't immediately go to the next episode. But when it's all said and done, it won't even be something that we remember.
Maybe they're just laying off a few cameramen and they're like, it's just easier to put them all on this one cheaper beach. That's all it is. It's like, just shut it down. It's like when you're a restaurant manager, close one of the dining rooms. It's close one of the islands and just move everyone over here.
But you're going to have one island anyway.
If you're going to move them to a different location, put them in a different country. Like, do something fun. Why do I care that you're moving them? How many feet away? It's whatever.
Maybe they were too close to a COVID case. And so they were like, oh, we got to quarantine them onto a different island. I'll just ship them out further.
If that was the case, I would give them a little bit of credit. I think this is just them being stupid. How can we make the game more dangerous? How can we maybe try to get Golden Boy Xander a win? All right, let's make them suffer more.
Maybe this is where the monster lives that we've heard so much about that I have not seen yet.
Who is the monster then?
Jeff, probably.
I wish I want it to be like a former player that just like comes out of nowhere. It's like, I'm the monster. I'm going to kill all of you.
I think that, some potential contenders, Russell, for obvious reasons, Reem, because she's willing to ream you out. That would be really fun.
Reem's a good one.
And she spent a lot of time on the edge, so maybe she's just still there.
Kevin, who's the monster? Give me a pick.
I don't really understand this whole monster thing. Is this something I'm not...
The preview, remember Jeff was in the preview.
Jeff went on and on about the monster in this.
That's the new theory. This is Monster Island that they're going to for the next 3 days.
Oh my god! If it's not Scooby-Doo, Monster Island, Monster Zombie Island, those are the only that this is. I'm not putting any stock in this. I'm not. Listen,
you wouldn't even play around with my garbage. I love it.
The finales are always like rushed and awful as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just gonna watch it. I'm not getting hyped.
Yeah, we've got it's interesting though. We have 2 hours that they say they're like, it's only 2 hours to get through them moving to an island, the final 5 actual vote, the final 4 fire making, and then the final 3. And then we have the 1 hour after show, which is, who knows what that's going to be. Maybe it's Jeff trying to reenact the talk show again. Who knows? But are we good to take a break, come back and rate our final 5 and see who we actually think is winning this game?
Let's do it.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Ho, 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 gentlemen! The holidays have come early here at Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. Manscaped just launched new products, including their ultra-new, ultra-premium body wash and a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself or someone who needs it the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code SURVIVOR for 20% off and free shipping.
Jingle balls to the walls. Fellas, listen up. Untrimmed pubes are a thing of the past, and it's possible you have Santa's beard in your pants. Could be Matt Bischoff's. It's time to leave your significant other some cookies and milk at the bottom of your chimney. I am talking about Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Oh, now, I had a lot of sex when I got back from my last appearance. I literally had sex 8 times in 12 hours. And, I did some damage down there, fellas. I did some serious damage. I had to call my doctor. There was swelling. There was everything else. It was bad. But you know what wasn't bad? My balls, because I shaved them with Manscaped. Oh, there was the lighting at the top of the tree, but the bottom of the tree looked perfect.
Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer has proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to reduce cuts on your nuts. It's also waterproof, so you can use it in the shower. It's like a gift to your partner with less mess. The Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant, moisturizer, and toner. It's time to keep your North Pole feeling and smelling fresh.
This hygiene bundle will also come with a pair of Manscaped anti-chafing boxers. God bless it. I needed and used that this week. I promise you. The perfect package for your perfect package. Manscaped is going beyond the groin with their new ultra premium body wash. It's infused with aloe vera and sea salt to keep your skin feeling clean, nice, and moisturized.
They also just launched their new 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, which has key ingredients with benefits that include hydrating, nourishing, conditioning the scalp, and strengthening your hair at the same time. 'Tis the season to load up on Manscaped products. So get yourself, your dad, your brother, your friends, your neighbor, the best gift of all, the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Reality NSFW listeners get 20% off and free shipping with the code SURVIVOR at manscaped.com. Every guy out there needs to add Manscaped to their wish list this holiday season.
This is Santa Claus talking to you once again. Get 20% off and free shipping with promo code SURVIVOR at manscaped.com. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use promo code SURVIVOR. Clean up your nuts and make Santa proud this year.
We're all trying to eat better, but healthy breakfast doesn't have to be boring. Magic Spoon has the amazing flavors you love, but without all the bad stuff. It's amazing as a midnight snack right before bed.
0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. That's only 140 calories per serving.
It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. And build your own box. Available flavors to build your very own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and my favorite, maple waffle. Now, Magic Spoon recently brought back their 2 super popular flavors, cookies and cream and maple waffle. Thank goodness. But they're back permanently. And when these flavors were first introduced for a limited time, they sold out extremely quickly. Now, I'm here to let you know you can get them again or try them for the first time. Why? Because they're delicious and indulgent.
Johnny, Magic Spoon has so many great flavors that I really enjoy, and even my kids enjoy them. We have the cocoa, fruity frosted, peanut butter. All these are really great combinations. They enjoy waking up in the morning and getting some Magic Spoon right off to start their day great before they head off to school. I think everybody listening should give Magic Spoon a try, or if you've tried them already, it's time to reorder. Let's get you some more Magic Spoon and get your day started right.
Hey, when I finish a podcast late at night the first thing I'm thinking is not sleep. It's let me grab a delicious bowl of Magic Spoon before I go to bed.
So go to magicspoon.com/survivor to grab a custom bundle of cereal and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code survivor at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/survivor and use the code SURVIVOR to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this podcast.
All right. So, after that beautiful word from some of my favorite companies, are you guys ready to rate our final five?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. Where are they? Okay. Here we are. All right. So let's start with Deshawn. So the way we typically like to go about this is simply put, rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 of where their game is at right now, where how they've played so far, how their outlook looks to win, and really that's it. I mean, take it any way you want as well. If you want to add to that, feel free. So, all right. You know what? Nigel, why don't you start with Deshawn real quick?
So, rating his gameplay through this point, I think what we need to remember is that it seems like things started off a lot stronger for Deshawn compared to where they are today. If I had to rate his likelihood to win, I think I would give him a 5 because he's not drawing dead by any means. But out of 5 people left, I think there are 2 people who are definitely more likely to win than he is, but there's also 2 people who are less likely. So he's really in that middle spot. There's 2 eliminations, so could easily be enough for him to win it out. But he's also been on the outs for quite a while now, and it's easy to imagine them just picking him off if Ricard wins immunity, for example. So I think I would give him a 5 for the current outlook, but for his overall game, I'll slightly bump him up to a 6 because he was in the majority when he was at Luvu pre-merge. When he gets to the merge, he is in the majority, but even then, it did seem like he didn't have as much power in his alliance. He was often clashing with Shan, emphasizing that he wanted to feel more included, more a part of the decision-making. So I think with all of that considered, I think overall, I would give him a 6.
Okay. All right. 6. Kevin, what do you have for Deshawn?
I think I'm going to give Deshawn a 5. I think he is clearly a bright person. I think he does struggle with overconfidence a bit and being particularly emotional at times, but it seems like people do come to him. I mean, we see scenes with him with Danny last episode, scenes with him with Heather last episode, scenes with Erika, people talking about big issues on a season about people who are talking about big things, right? Like people are very aware of what the season represents. And so I think Deshawn can really fit into that. And he has been in a good position for most of the game. And just like Nigel said, seemed to not have as much power in his alliance. Shan kind of really took over there. But, when he put his foot down, when Shan suggested Heather to go, Deshawn said, no, not Mama Heather, not this time. And, God bless him for it. So he's still in the game. And I think he is doing decent. And I actually do recall probably one of my favorite Deshawn moments is when the Sydney boot happens and the whole Yasa idol situation's going on. And he reveals that he knew that Xander had the idol because Evie told him when they were on the summit so many weeks before. And to me, it tells me this is someone who does stockpile information very well and knows how to use them. Maybe tries to overplay at times, but he has a lot of heart, and I don't think he's drawing dead.
I think you make a good point about Deshawn. I think Deshawn is great at getting the information and like kind of knowing what to do with it. I don't know if he always executes and like how he gets rid of it. He's kind of like, all right, I have the information. I'm going to use it like in an explosive way. And it's sometimes like, no, maybe if you use this in a bit more of a subtle way, that could have worked better. So Nigel, you're at a 6. Kevin, you're at a 5. I'm at a 4. This episode was not good for him. It really wasn't. Sure, he stayed. Credit to him for that to an extent. But it was kind of also, you know what? I'm going to make myself look more like a jury goat than Danny will. So you're going to want to take Danny out of the game. With the one exception of making that quote-unquote deal with Erika and Xander at the reward, I do think that benefited him enough. Or somebody like Erika, who almost is controlling Heather and has a pretty good outcome, has a pretty big weight on the decision, used it to keep him in the game. So that's where I can say the good part of it came in. And I think, like you said, he's a very smart guy, socially, up and down. He's in the middle for me in terms of winning the game because he's like we've all said, he's not as good as Erika or Ricard, and he's probably a little bit better than Xander, and everyone's better than Heather. So I'm not sure what to think. Can he win the game? Yes, but I feel like he's like the guy who has like one path to win, whereas like Erika has a couple, Ricard has a lot, Heather has none. Maybe Xander has like one path as well. It's like a little less strong than Deshawn's. All right. Let's talk next about good old Erika. Nigel, why don't you start with Erika?
So I think that Erika is on a good trajectory. That's where you want to be in the end game. Her game has really ramped up the further we've gotten in this merge. I think she's at a bit of an overall disadvantage because people weren't really exposed to her game before the merge. It seems like even some of the people on her tribe just didn't really see it as much either. But I think that she's really coming into her own at just the right time. So I think that she's also the person that is best positioned in this final 5. You know, she certainly has had a relationship with Deshawn. I don't know how strong it stands on day 24 after his bomb that he dropped at Tribal, but he seems like he's been an option for her in the past. She has Heather right there. Xander seems to be someone who is open to working with her as well. So I think that I would give her a 7. I don't think that she is the strongest candidate to win at this point, but I think at the final 5, that's actually a pretty good place to be because everybody has their eyes on a bigger target than you. And if they manage to win immunity next round, you know, Ricard can still go at the fire makings. And if she's in the fire making, we've also seen scenes of her on the island by herself where she was able to make fire. So I do think that she actually stands a pretty good chance at the final episode here. So again, my number is 7.
Okay, I hate agreeing with you, but I do have to agree with you on a lot there. I have Erika at a 7 as well, although I think if we were playing a little more old school Survivor and there was no fire making at 4, which Probst, listen, this is another reason why you want to get rid of it. I think Erika would be in a better position to win and almost maybe in a better position than Ricard. However, that's not the game that we get to see this time. We get to see fire making at 4 where there is 1 vote left. If Ricard wins that vote, there is no free way to get him out. There is no like, all right, Ricard doesn't win immunity, he's gone. It's not there. So that's my biggest concern is Erika going to be able to take that shot that she needs to take to win? But like I've said, I've sung her praises. She's shown how capable she is as a player. She's capable of rising up when she needs to, even with a little bit of a target on her back, and getting who she wants out and the way she wants them out. I think the way she's able to take control of votes is really, really fantastic, honestly. But I am worried about the jury's perception as well. And if she's up against Ricard, she has no shot. Kevin, what do you think about Erika?
You know, I think I say a 7 overall for Erika because I think what everyone's saying that she's positioned well. She seems to understand this game very well. You know, she has certainly influenced the strategy that we're seeing. My concern for Erika, of course, is the fire making challenge. Not that she's not skilled at it, but it does make it harder for her to get rid of the right people. But I think the last tribal council was a really good moment where there's this fear that maybe Erika's game will not be understood by the jury. And Deshawn's there being, taking a shot at her kind of and trying to spice it up. And she lets Danny go home still. Now, that was the move that she wanted to go into tribal council with, but is it the move that is giving the jury the narrative that she wants them to? Is she not coming out as the lion that she thinks she is? And I don't know if she needs to wave a bounty in front of them, someone's severed head to show, look at what I did. Because it seems like based on the post-show interviews, and we know they're not always perfect, a lot of people seem to perceive her as lucky, which is very interesting considering that people like Shan have described her as also sneaky and shady and strategic, but she's still perceived as lucky by multiple members of the jury. And so that leads me to be a little concerned about her overall winner chances, despite, I think, playing a very solid game.
So here's a theory that I have.
Go for it.
Erika has talked about being the lion. We all have that image in our head, the big, strong lion. We think of Mufasa, Simba when he's grown up, right? Like that classic image of the lion. But maybe it's smarter to think of Erika as the female lion of the pride. They have to be a lot more stealth. They have to be a lot more hidden. They are the one who is doing all of the hunting. So maybe Erika is not that person who is large out front and so obvious in everything that they're doing, but is actually a lot more nuanced and strategic about some of her moves. So maybe she's just a different kind of lion than we've been thinking of.
I think that's a really cool way to put it. I will unfortunately remind you that it's a patriarchal society, which does not bode well for her chances, which is the same problem that she might be running into on this season. The lion metaphor.
But mine is a good idea.
I think the other thing I love it too, Nigel. I think maybe the other thing I would be cautious with Erika is that it seems like she's described as like a girl a lot, kind of cutesy a lot. And she's 32. She's older than us. This is like a woman who has a career, and she's kind of perceived to be a little like, it's a strange way to describe an adult woman, is what I'd say. And so, kind of like Nalia, who, flipped the entire game around and kind of changed Survivor's trajectory. Sometimes I think looking young and feeling young isn't always a positive thing in the eyes of a jury who's rewarding someone with so much money. But if someone can do it, I think Erika can.
Yeah, I like the point that you really make there of Erika being able to pitch that, and I think the severed head that she needs is Ricard. She absolutely needs that, and then she can look, Ricard's head, it's mine. And also, by the way, Shan, your vote, yes, Ricard started it, but I'm the one who put every piece where it needed to be. Liana, same thing. I put every piece where it needed to be. That the other thing is, I almost think this move of getting Danny out benefits her even more. Because then she can look like, you know what? Deshawn's baiting didn't work on me. He didn't scare me. I wasn't intimidated by him. You know what? He pulled all that, and I'm sitting here, I'm going to laugh at him. He's like my little pet. It's like, you know what? No, that's sweet that you think you can get rid of me. And I think Erika is somebody who kind of needs that. You know what? I am better than you. You're not intimidating me. You're not scaring me. You asked me to vote you out, and I'm not going to because I'm going to beat you later. And it's like, you can see Erika's not going to be influenced easily, and not by showiness. She's like, you know what? You tried to put on a show for me. It didn't work. So that's where I also think that can work in her favor.
I agree. When he does that, her response is very much like, it's okay. I'm not worried about you. In a venue that's in front of every person who you need to give you their vote for $1 million, right? She totally cuts his legs out from under him in a way that I found very satisfying.
Yeah, very Azula from The Last Airbender going, don't flatter yourself. You're hardly even a player. It was such a good moment. And I hope the jury took note.
It's one of those things oh, that's cute. Okay, that's cute that you think you can do that. And I hope it works out for her in that way. All right, let me start with Heather. For the second time this season, Heather, she gets the one. No shot, none whatsoever. I'm sorry. I gave her the one after she tried getting up and doing that whole plan. At this point, I'm giving her the one because she has no shot to win. Her game has been fine. There's not been a lot there that's good or bad. This jury doesn't respect her at all. She keeps digging herself holes by criticizing them inadvertently. If Heather gets a vote, I will be in just complete disbelief in that vote. I could maybe see coming from Erika as pity, even though I don't think it happens. So yeah, I'm sorry. I hate saying it. Heather has no shot in hell, none whatsoever.
Sure. Heather may not have the most shot. I will give her a 2 because
how
I
generous.
think, well, Heather is probably going to make it to the final 3, which is, what? A lot of these people in this cast could not say that they did. So her gameplay obviously got her to a position. She wasn't, a completely useless contestant. She voted in the majority. She always kept her torch lit. She didn't need a huge twist to save her.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that Heather has not played a particularly poor game, and I'm hesitant to always kind of lump a lot of these potential or 0 vote finalists, older moms as completely irredeemable. I think Sherry from
100%.
Caramoan played a much stronger game than the jury gave her credit for as well. Clearly, there are some reasons why Heather will likely not be our winner, but I don't think that she played a score 1 game. I do think she is better if she gets to the finals, and even if she gets 0 votes, I think she'll still outrank a handful of other finalists.
I completely agree with you. And if we're after the finale, I'm rating these people. Heather's not getting a 1 unless she absolutely tanks this week. I'm sorry, she probably gets a 2, maybe a 3 even. But if I'm looking at the stage of what do I have so far, what did she do in this most recent episode to help her case, and what shot does she have to win? The shot is 0. That at this point we're at the finale. She has no shot. I can't give her anything higher. But Nigel, what do you think?
I'm also going to give Heather a 1. Or
Yay!
no, I'm going to give her a 2. I'm going to give her a
Yes.
2 because, I actually do think that Heather does things to advance her game. I don't think that they're enough. I don't think they're terribly complicated, but I think that Heather does a really good job of avoiding huge mistakes.
Mhm.
Her issue comes back to, at the end of the day, who she is relative to the specific cast that she's on. I think that Sheehan was always going to have a hard time on Thailand. The group was just not the right group for her. If you put Sheehan on a season today, I think she probably has a much better chance on average. I just don't think that this was the group for Heather, but she doesn't make a ton of mistakes. So I will give her a 2.
That's very fair, and the Sheehan comparison is very interesting.
Very different, but a little of a parallel there. And I
get where you're going for. I just know Sheehan's gameplay, or in some cases lack thereof, is a very hot button issue. So I'm not going to touch that right now. What I will touch on is Ricard's gameplay. But Kevin, why don't you start with Ricard?
So I'm going to give Ricard a 7, which seems a little low, but I mean, he's just such a huge target going into multiple votes now that, he really does need to win immunity. And that's not exactly a position you want to be in. I do think he is capable of doing it. And maybe it's the edit just making us believe he's such an obvious finalist. But, the final immunity challenge in Gabon was stacking cards. We have no idea what the final challenges will be down the pipeline. And if he loses any of them, he likely goes. So I think that I'm not going to give Ricard a higher number, even though I do think he is the favorite at this point to win, because he does have some severe obstacles. And even if he does get to the end, I think it's possible the jury doesn't respect him or like him. There are many times where it seems like he gets in conflict with people, even on his own starting tribe. You would imagine as a queer person himself, he'd probably have a better relationship with someone like Jeannie. It just seems that like he is not having these strong social connections in the way that other people who have won the game have had, even though he plays a very observant and almost clinical game at times. I do think there are some weaknesses that give me a 7 overall.
Okay. You actually helped convince me to go with an 8. I was going between an 8 and 9. Ricard, clearly in the front runner spot. There's no doubt about that. And like I said before, if there were 2 more legit votes left, I probably have him lower. There is 1 vote left, and out of everybody left in the game, he is the top contender to win immunity, regardless of what the challenge is. I get Xander's a contender. Deshawn can win something. Maybe Erika can even win something, and who the hell knows if there's another hold your head up on something, Heather wins it. But at this point, that plus what the edit is giving me, it's hard for me to see a scenario where he loses, but if he does, he's going to have this very glorious downfall. And I agree with you. And the reason I'm not giving him a higher score is because that game is flawed. And I've always said it. If you need to win a competition to save your life, you're doing something wrong. That's Ricard's biggest problem right now, is that he took out all the big threats. He took out Chan, good on him. But now he's the only one left. And if he survives, good on him. But if he doesn't, we all know he's gone. Nigel, what do you think about him?
I'd been considering a 7 or an 8. And after hearing both of you, I think I will have to go with a 7. You both have emphasized the important point of he allowed his target to become too large. He was really instrumental in a number of votes, and it just raised his profile to a degree that I think you do have to give him some blame for it. Maybe he shouldn't have been so obviously out front about getting out Shan. I just think that he could have done more to not be the person that everyone will vote out if the option presents itself. I also wonder if maybe Ricard did not imagine there was a high likelihood that he would end up being the comp beast at the end of the merge portion of this game. And I think it's probably exciting and fun, and you want to win immunity, especially if you think that you may have a little bit of a chance of going. But, winning so many as we're getting into this last part here, it's just really putting a big bullseye on your back. So I think realistically, if he is in the final 3, I do think he wins based on the comments that we've been hearing from players on their way out, like Shan or Danny, while he's still in the game, saying get rid of him or he's going to win. But I do think that his social relationships could have been a lot better too. I think that it's possible that he loses, but I think that at this point, if Ricard wins his way to the end, I think he wins. So overall, I'll give him a 7.
I want to just throw in here real quickly. I think an issue that Ricard has, also as a character perhaps, is that I don't know if he's particularly funny. And I think that is actually a really important gauge of how you connect with people, right? It's like, are you able to kind of read those cues? And, clearly he also is deaf. So like there's an element of that exists here. But like, is he making people laugh? Do people like him? Are people drawn to him? Does he know like what makes people tick a bit? He seems to understand the game in so many strategic ways, like very calculated ways. But I think sometimes he seems very serious. When he's always at tribal council, it feels like he's testifying or he's doing an interview. There's a way that he talks, and the way that he's being described as slimy or snake-like by jurors, makes me, like I said, pick up on these social issues that he may be having out there. Even if he is a losing finalist, I'm really excited to see what that ends up looking like.
For sure, I'm with the both of you there. Like, is he a losing? Like, if he was a losing finalist, like that, I think it would be the most compelling outcome. Just because it'd be like, how did he manage to do this? So I think it'd be almost a case of how did he manage to fuck this up?
Yeah.
My other scenario that's interesting is if he's not in the final 4, and neither final 3, and neither is Heather. If we somehow we lose him and Heather back to back in either order, we have
the
a
chicken
Deshawn.
Vegetables alliance.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Last but not least on the board is good old Xander. Kevin, why don't you start with Xander?
So here's the thing. I think I said this the entire podcast. Xander, I think, has made decent choices. I think they are defendable. If I was him, I would have played the idol on Evie. I would have tried to get Yasa back together. But, he evaded elimination round after round after round. And you can either say, maybe it's because the people didn't take him seriously, or did he play a role in that because, he has tried to shield himself with certain threats. Like, I think he has been active in that. Is that going to be known by the jury? Is the big question mark. I will give Xander a 5 overall because I do think it's impressive to get to this point in the game with an idol as a clear physical threat as well. So he's like primed to very much make the final 4 already, which is very impressive. So I'm going to give him a 5, but I do think there is a lot of his game to be desired, but we also haven't seen a lot of those social connections, which is, I think, why he's not seen as a threat. And without that, it's hard for me to give him a lower score. So I'm going to say 5 overall.
All right. Nigel, what do you think about Xander?
I think I would give him a 4 because I think that if you look at his game strategically, looking at his positioning on his starting tribe and then at the merge, I think he's actually been fairly impressive since getting flipped on. I think he's done a lot to make sure he's maneuvering himself into better positions. So that makes me want to rate him higher, but it just seems like everybody out there has just dismissed him as a threat or someone that they need to be particularly worried about. And so it's a little hard to grade it because I haven't seen it myself. I think that we're missing the people reacting to things that Xander says that maybe would clue you into the fact that he's maybe not well respected by a lot of people, but I just don't think we've gotten that footage. So when you take that into consideration, I think 4 is probably fairly close to where he's at in the minds of the jury, at least.
Fair enough. We're going down 1 by 1, 5, 4, and I'm at a 3 for him right now. His shot to win is not the best. His gameplay of late has also been not the best. The fact that he just got into an alliance 2 votes ago is not a great sign. The jury, to me, still doesn't respect him. He's had some good moments early on, but at this point, most people have forgotten about them or don't care about them enough. He's getting to Final 4. Good on him for that. He's likely getting to Final 3. But does he have any control in who gets there with him? I doubt it. If he does, then maybe he wins. But right now, I don't think he does. So that's why I'm at a 3 for him.
I think he technically has the capability of taking control at the end because
all he has to do is play an idol
could win
and then win a
immunity
challenge.
and use the idol. So he has the option.
Yeah.
Does it mean he will even properly do it? Who knows?
Who knows? All right. So we're done with threes. One last thing I want to do with the two of you, if you guys are up for, is a little rapid fire game of who wins in each final 3 scenario.
Okay.
So I'll just tell you a scenario. You tell me, each of you, who you think wins it. All right?
All right.
All right. Deshawn, Erika, Heather.
Erika.
We are unanimous there. All right. Deshawn, Erika,
Ricard.
Yep. Okay. So Ricard wins basically everything. Deshawn, Erika, Xander.
I still think Erika.
I think Erika.
All right. We are unanimous there. All right. Let's take Deshawn. Deshawn, Heather, Xander.
Deshawn.
Okay, I'm with you there. Deshawn, Heather, Ricard. Yep. All right. Deshawn, Ricard, Xander.
Ricard.
All right. Can we find any scenario where Ricard loses? I don't think we can. All right.
It's going to be like all Ricard, then all Erika, then all Deshawn, right? Is that
Why are we in agreement? I want to find somewhere we disagree with this.
I mean, it's like, how do we get to that? And that those three is like part of the real, like, I think maybe that's where things can start shifting up and down.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have the time for all the different combinations, but it's
I
like,
think I've written down
if Xander is not that I'm sure you'll name one of them, but it's like, is the Xander, Heather, Deshawn final 3? Is that Xander playing his idol at final 5? Is that Heather winning the fire making challenge? Is that Deshawn doing something stupid? Like some of those bigger ones, I think, make it a little bit more complicated. But I think the general rule so far is Ricard's going to win if he's there. If Ricard's not there, then Erika will win, and then Deshawn wins if neither of them are there.
I do think it's possible that Deshawn beats Erika in a final 3 setup because with Danny going to the jury, we see the big blow up that he has with Shan at the Ponderosa table. But maybe this is a good thing for Deshawn because he's getting Danny on the jury at 6. That's a bit of time for Danny to be there and talk to the other people. It's quite possible that Danny does the work for Deshawn in getting Shanna and Liana back in the fold. And from that point, he has 3 votes already, so he would only need to get a few more. And that puts him within a shot at least. So I think that's the most likely outcome where it is not just Ricard, then Erika, and then Deshawn.
That's where that scenario really interests me, is when we get to that like middle scenario. can Danny do enough to convince this jury that Deshawn deserves it? And who's playing that opposition on that jury? Is anybody really fighting against him on that? Is Shan the one challenging him of like, really? He did all this. He didn't know how to act. Probably he was a child here. He was a child there. Who's playing that opposition? I think that's what's really interesting. And you know what? Can we get a Deshawn, Erika, Xander final 3, please? I don't know how we get it. It seems impossible, but I'd love it.
The chicken and veggies alliance, truly an option for us here. But when you think about it, I think Erika's actually a little bit out of a disadvantage of our 3 main finalists because Deshawn has Danny on the jury and Ricard has Shan on the jury. But I think that Erika's biggest champion would be Heather. And
she's not
it's hard to
influencing
imagine
anyone.
her convincing
No.
anyone or being on the jury itself, So I think that Erika lacks that champion that's going to be there.
And we also understand this is supposed to be a rapid game that we delved into deep analysis for. But
You know what? That's kind of what I was looking forward to. A rapid game where we then delve somewhere, which
okay, good.
It worked for me. My one thing is though, I almost think Erika benefits more with Heather being on that jury next to her, so that Heather can't tank her game. Because if the perception of Heather is what like this jury is making it seem like it is, and that everything that comes out of Heather's mouth is garbage, having Heather on that jury campaigning for you almost maybe works against you. Is where I'm leaning.
Maybe. I know people are like, she get rid of Heather. And I'm like, no, just have her in the end game with you. Even if that's not a vote for you to win, don't risk being the person that got rid of Heather and lost. Like that's humiliating. I'm sorry.
Will this be kind of like Aubrey and Joe Del Campo, where everybody's like, oh, well, we all know that Heather was just Erika's +1 vote.
Yeah.
That was the goat she dragged to the end, maybe.
Yeah, and I'm dragging them to the end with me. I don't care if I'm anybody left in the game. Sure, you can make the argument all day of they take up a spot. So does anybody. I want them in one of those spots.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. Is there any other combinations we need to suss out?
Actually, we'll give you one. Erika, Heather, Xander. Because you take out Heather. Does Xander have any case against the two of them?
You said Erika, Heather, Xander?
Yes.
Oh, I think Erika wins. But I think that Erika wins.
I think Erika wins, but can Xander do anything to like say, you know what? This is a pair. I'm not that pair. And can Deshawn do the same thing, maybe?
Yeah, I think that is a potential option there. But I also think that combination could actually be why people have referred to Erika as lucky. I think it's possible that they don't view Erika as a particularly strong player, but she was at the end with Heather and Xander, who no one wanted to ever give any votes for. So they're like, yeah, she had the best combo that was available to her.
Yeah, and I hope this jury gives her enough credit to say, you know what, she made that combo happen. But will they? Who knows? All right. Last thing, winner picks. Who's winning? Kevin, who's winning?
I think Deshawn is winning.
Oh, God help us all.
That's an interesting answer.
I think Deshawn's winning, and it's because I'm not allowed to get my hopes up. So I'm just throwing into the universe. Deshawn's gonna win. I'm preparing myself to be jaded. But it'll be nice to have a clearly a very charming person who will probably be really fun onto podcasts in Deshawn as the winner. But I think Deshawn's gonna win.
Nigel, who's winning?
So I'm gonna say Erika is winning because I think that when you're at the final 5, you don't want to be the least threatening. You don't want to be the most threatening. And I think that she's really put herself in that runner-up slot at 5. And I think that's where I would want to be at this point. So I think it's Erika.
Interesting. All right. I am with Ricard just at the basis of we're doing this all over again. This is like it to me almost seems like the Nick Wilson spot of, all right, this is their path to the end. They've been the front runner. They can just get rid of this person. They're in good shape. And I think that's Ricard's position right now.
The Mike Holloway.
Yes, a less extreme Mike Holloway for sure. Is another example. I don't know why Nick Wilson pops in my head when I think of
so help me if Ricard ever ate a scorpion on television. I'd actually probably like him fully as a character.
Oh my God, that damn scorpion. All right. Kevin, Nigel, I love the two of you. Thank you both so much for coming on. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we take it home?
I'm also rooting for Erika, but like Kevin said, hard to get our hopes up. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
All I want to say is that a woman's never winning Survivor again, y'all. You're gonna have to just get used to this. This is not. I'm sorry. I know this is what we want to happen, but we never get what we want to happen, y'all. So Deshawn's gonna win. I'm gonna be bummed about it, but I've prepared myself a week in advance, and I'm really glad that we had this opportunity to talk Survivor with you, Alex.
It won't make it any easier. Don't worry. No matter how much you prepare, it doesn't make the bitter pill any easier to swallow. And I think also maybe I need to stop picking women to win this game. I think I'm trying to reverse
cursed
the curse.
them.
Hey, for the record, I have not picked them every season since season 35. Just I think 36, 37. Every season except 35, I think I picked a woman. So
yeah.
You know what? All right. It's my fault. That's it. It's my fault a woman hasn't won this game. I'll probably pick a woman for 42 because you know what? The women.
Because you're keeping the curse going.
You're keeping the curse going.
I have to break it somehow.
Men supporting women in all the wrong ways. Well, fingers crossed. It would be really fun if Erika was the winner.
You know what? If Erika won, that'd be great. If Heather won, you know what? I'd throw my arms in the air and say, you know what? I'm never talking about this again, but this was a blast. All right. Thank you guys both so much. And bit of promotion to do. So Wednesday night, Johnny and Matt Bischoff will be in, I believe it's Cincinnati, for their finale party. Bryce and Wendell are hosting a finale party in Hoboken, New Jersey, where I will be at. So if you see me and you somehow recognize me, say hi. I believe there are other finale parties going on across the country. Other than that, Johnny Fairplay, Alex Reese, and Lauren Pratt are covering 2 seasons of the challenge throughout the week. And also, we will have a live Survivor after show after the finale at 11 p.m. Eastern Wednesday night. And then next week, we'll have another deep dive with somebody. I'm going to figure this out. Have a great one, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Lucy Nicotine is a company founded by Caltech scientists and former smokers looking for a better and cleaner nicotine alternative. Finally, tobacco alternatives that don't suck.
Researched and developed for 3 years to be made for people, not patients. Lucy has created a nicotine gum with 4 milligrams of nicotine that comes in 3 flavors: wintergreen, cinnamon, and pomegranate. Lucy also has a lozenge with 4 milligrams of nicotine in cherry ice flavor. Each and every flavor actually tastes great, and it's convenient and discreet. Products can be enjoyed anywhere, on flights, at work, on the go, or even in the gym.
I am so happy that Lucy is sponsoring us. Ever since they came on board, I have gotten no less than 5 of my friends transitioned over to Lucy and put their cigarettes down. They like the gum. I'm used to seeing the packages all around. This stuff is great, and it's really helping people make much healthier choices. So get on board and join the Lucy movement.
Hey, it's 2021. Get rid of your cigarettes, unplug your vape, throw out your dip, and get some Lucy nicotine gum or lozenges. This is the real deal. A subscription to Lucy comes directly to your door each month. It's so simple that you don't even have to leave your house because Lucy has delivery down.
Reality NSFW listeners, go to lucy.co and use promo code SURVIVOR to get 20% off all products, including gum or lozenges. That's lucy.co and use promo code SURVIVOR at checkout. Also, I have to give this disclaimer. Warning, this product contains nicotine derived from tobacco. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. That's lucy.co, and be sure to use that promo code SURVIVOR.
This episode of Reality NSFW is sponsored by Blue Chew. Say it with us, Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedroom by offering chewable tablets that can help men get stronger and longer lasting erections. That's right, we're giving away super hard dicks.
Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets help men achieve harder, stronger erections to combat all forms of ED.
Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor offices, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the best part, it's all done online.
Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? No problem here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy.
Hey, if you're looking to give that immunity idol to someone, or you don't want to be voted out of a crater, don't worry, Blue Chew's got you covered. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information.
And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use promo code SURVIVOR at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's Blue Chew, BlueChew.com, promo code SURVIVOR to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.